Okay. So a very, very warm welcome to the May Solarchat Zoom. It's lovely to see all the hardcore people here, all the best people. Even though it be sort of like 5 in the morning, is it, Ralph?
4.
Oh, 4. Oh, gosh, even worse. Anyway, I just wanted to update you on the Solarchat fundraiser. I think the target was $15,000, and Stephen managed to get 12,800 in the end, which was good. I think there was 31 donations from Solarchat, which I'm wondering whether that's a record actually. So that's pretty good going. So quite pleased about that because it did have a very, very slow start to start with. And I was a bit worried because certainly the bill for Solarchat is very imminent, and that's like $4,000. And when the fundraiser stopped at about $5,000 for about half a month, it was a bit worrying. So at least, that's come through. So that was good. I think there was a few things that people wanted to chat about. I think, Warren, you wanted to chat about processing. I've got some sort of like Heliostar images from this morning, which I haven't processed. So I can always share my screen and we can go through some processing, but I only have Photoshop or ImPPG. I don't have PixInsight. So maybe somebody who's got PixInsight might want to share their screen with sort of like a little demo of what they do, because I think it is particularly a difficult thing to be able to get prominences and surface details balanced, because you either get the prominences way overexposed and then you get that horrible like pale limb and it doesn't, you get that bad transition, or you just don't see the prominences at all, and yet you know that they're there because you can see them, and it's a very, very fine balance. And I think that Stuart seems to do an amazing, I don't know how he does it, but he seems to make the whole histogram pop. So it's like bright all over, but not blown out in the plage or anything like that. But you've got, nice balanced limb, balanced prominences. And I think Warren does the same. And I think that seems to be coming from this solar toolkit in PixInsight. So it would be nice, for somebody to go through what they do with that. I don't know whether, like, you've got any ideas. Do you think that's a good plan for today?
But I got to say, I know Stu uses the toolbox on PixInsight more than I do. And he was going to talk to somebody about settings and so forth, because it's so aggressive at times that, trying to get the sliders to where you want. I mean, I think it does a pretty good job on the problems well. And I think, Stu, you're using that to bring out your problems, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm on my iPad rather than my laptop, okay. So I can't share. But Warren, you've got PixInsight, haven't you?
Oh, yes, you could direct Warren.
So yeah, if you share your screen, I can tell you what I do. But just before we do that, if that's at all possible, Warren. Yeah, I use. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, so yeah, I use PixInsight and the Solar Toolbox. I've been using that probably about a year or something like that now. But at first, I hated it, absolutely hated it. I just couldn't get on with it at all. But I persevered, and I think I found a way of using it which gives quite reasonable results. So I'm perfectly happy to go through what I do. Not saying it's the best. I'm just saying it's what I do. And it might not work with everybody else's images, because obviously we've got so many different settings, different cameras and all the rest of it. The settings that I suggest may not be perfectly aligned with everybody else's system, should we say. So Warren, can you share that at all?
Yeah, hold on a second. I'm getting an image up. And let me go, let's see. I got to do share my screen. I'll do the entire screen. Share. Okay, so
Okay.
can you see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
So that was that's a image I, matter of fact, just took this morning. It's stacked, but I've processed it my way. But if you want to, so I can go to the toolbox.
Okay. So first of all, Warren, can you just zoom in on the image?
Yeah.
Just expand it a bit. I don't know how this works across the network and so on, but I'm just trying to see what sort of detail you've got in the first place. So this has been through ImPPG, has it?
No, this is straight out of AutoStacker.
Right, okay. So the first thing I do is I use ImPPG to get what I would say would be, a reasonably good, almost finished product. And then when I go into PixInsight, if you go to process, what we're looking for is multi-scale linear transform, I think it's called. If you can find that.
Wait a minute. I know it's here. Okay. You want screen transfer?
No. It's multi-scale something. If you
Okay, hold on. Multi-scale processing.
Yep.
And linear transform.
That's the one. Yeah. If you go on to that one. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So
multi-scale linear transform.
Yeah. What I'll do, I'll get my laptop cracked open, and then we can probably maybe do a better job. But if just forget that for now, because I think it's set up slightly differently on mine. But if we go back to Solar Toolbox, so basically what I do is ImPPG first, keep it as a TIFF. And then I just do a little bit of extra sharpening, if you like, with the multi-scale linear transform, just gently. And then in Solar Toolbox, you've got surface and proms selected under image type. If you just drop that down just to show everybody else the choices there on the image type. Sorry, yeah, go on to image type. No.
Then you
if you close those boxes, okay. So further up. Yeah, no, slightly down. It says surface and prominences.
Right.
Can you see where I am? There, that's it. If you click that down, so you've got surface only, which is what I use when I've got my close views on the 150. Surface and prominences for full discs, like this one shown here. And then if you want, you can just do prominences. But so if we click on surface and prominences, yeah, okay. So you can see prominence boost there, yeah. So you click on that one, and then I boost, if you go to boost amount and just drag that out to the right to about 0.4, keep going.
You want me to put, I'll put on.
You can put on 0.4.
Yeah, so you can see it happen, if it will.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
There it is.
It takes a little while. So about 0.4. Roughly. I mean, again, it depends on the particular settings. Okay, so if you
They're starting to pop up a little bit.
Yeah, then go on to contrast enhancement, which is the next one down.
There we go.
Yeah, click on that. Local contrast. Yeah, and then I take that down to about 3.5, 3.5 roughly. Again, it will depend on, yeah. I mean, you can type in the numbers, obviously, but yeah, okay. Now go down to the bottom square, right at the bottom of that. Yeah, that's it. And click that. So it'll take a few seconds to process that. Okay, so that's basically the effect. As I say, I would have put it through ImPPG first,
Right.
and then a little bit of extra sharpening after that, and then put it through this process. And then you can see it's really brought out the prominences.
You're looking at the preview there, so you'll be seeing double the effect. You need to look at
if that's a
you need
preview.
to look at the image.
Yeah, this is the pre.
Okay.
Well, I think it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so if you come out of that and just see the image, but those are the two parameters that I adjust: the prominence boost and contrast enhancement. So if you're not getting the right effect, obviously you can just adjust the sliders a little bit until it works for your particular setup. I don't use the sharpening function under Solar Toolbox. I don't really like what it does. Maybe I'm not using it properly, but I always find ImPPG and then multi-scale linear transform seems to do a good job. Again, you got to be gentle on those controls.
So just as a comparison, this is the one I've been working on in Photoshop.
Okay.
And what I do on this one, let me get rid of my, you guys are in my way here. So for me to bring out the proms like that, let me see if I can go back to history. Okay. All right. So this is sharpened in Photoshop after auto stacker. And then to bring out the proms, all I do is I go to filter and camera raw. And then I just take and pull shadows up. And I'll bring it back in and do a quick, bring the sky back down. So, and if you go too strong, it'll bring up that ring that you were talking about, Alexandra. But if you do it in small increments, it keeps them to where the proms and the surface tend to be more about the same brightness, but brings out the proms as well. So
but you do get sort of like a washed out like limb. I can see in the top right hand corner.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, you get this sort of like ringing effect. That's the problem I find with the shadows and highlights.
Yeah, you have to be gentle with it.
So you like lose the contrast and you end up with this, I can't point, but it's sort of like the top right rim. You can see sort of like a grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been working with Core, who does Wave Sharp, and he's adding some additional stuff to, that's the replacement for Registax. And he's been adding some similar things to what PixInsight Toolbox has for bringing up proms, trying to keep the edge of the sun the way it's supposed to be. And he's working on that. He hasn't gotten ready to release it yet, but he's getting real close to where it gives you quite a bit of control on bringing those up too. So it can be another option to look at pretty soon here, I think.
Do you want me to show you some of the things that I do on?
Yeah,
So if you,
I'll stop sharing.
Thanks for helping out there, Warren.
Yeah, okay. Stop
because
sharing.
there were a few little tips that Mark Townley showed me with the shadows and highlights. Right. So, right, so this is one that I took this morning with the Heliostar, but I haven't run it through ImPPG yet. So should I go through ImPPG first? Right, let's just do that quickly. I'm sure like everybody else can chip in. Let's load. So I'll pick that one, that last one. So what I usually do with is pick an area, but the default obviously is I think way over processed. So what I usually do is I get rid of this unsharp masking till it's minimum 0.5 because I just don't like it. And then I change this to 500 to make it smaller, and then bring this down as low as possible. And what you'll see is that you get much finer sharpening with that. Because what you don't want, you want it to stay smooth and fluffy. You don't want sharp bits. I can see that that's a little bit sharp for my personal taste, so I would bring that down a little bit more. So it's, you know, like you're not getting the noise. And like a lot of people will think, oh, you can't see that much of that. If I just do the whole thing, you get a lot more detail. And I think that the finer, the lower you, like Mark keeps going, you're doing it on way too high a sigma all the time. This is what he means, is that the deconvolution sigma is too high. Bring it right back, but do more iterations, and you get a finer detail over, you know, this sort of like area. So if I just save that. Something that annoys me about ImPPG is why can't it save where you've got the image from? So you have to go and find where you had your image. That's just something that just bugs me. Maybe somebody's got a tip about that. Don't know. And then save that as a TIFF. Which one's the end one? Okay, so I don't do any stretching in ImPPG at all. I do it all in Photoshop. So first of all, I do like Control L and just check. This is what Rainer keeps going on about, is this blank piece here, is to bring it in to the start so that you get your blacks in your black space black, because this is just all wasted. And this is what gives you like that white ghosty area. And I tend to move this over a little bit more towards the middle as well. So it's more of a like a balanced histogram. Not saying that this is right or anything. And then I just go Control M and just check again that this is correct. Now, sometimes the histogram is the opposite way round. And I think it's because in image adjustments, oh, it's mode. If it's in grayscale, I change it to RGB color. And then when you go, the histogram's the right way round again. And I don't know why that is, but I just bring this up so it's a little bit brighter, so that this area is more in to where the histogram is. And we can see that there are prominences. So if we go into the shadows and highlights, what Mark said to me is these preset defaults in the shadows, don't use them. He said, bring this down to 10 and this down to 10. And then you get the prominences, but you don't get this fading out around the limb. But that's as far as I've got with this, but at least it preserves, you know, like the contrast in this very edge first centimetre, but you get the prominences. But I like how Stuart just makes them pop a little bit more. I haven't, I think that if you go into, you know, like brightness and contrast, you can, but then you start to blow out the plage, which I don't like. If you bring out the contrast a little bit, you know, you start to lose the proms again. I have, you know, tried doing a second pass of shadows and highlights, but you've got to be careful if you've got any areas, you know, where you've got cloud or anything like that, you can end up just boosting that and getting all sorts of funny wings. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think that this one is working a little bit better. So it's like bringing them out a little bit. But you can see here that, you know, with the chameleon, I can't just quite get the top part of the heliostar disc in one view. So I know that AstroShot was asking how many panes with the chameleon am I using? I'm using 2. So I just take, you know, that top clip here and add it in as a, you know, like in Photoshop. I think that in here, you'll see that if I open this image, it starts to go off band here in this corner when I bring up to the top of the disc. So I'm in effect bringing this down. This area is now going off band. So the sweet spot isn't totally over everything. I think that the sweet spot is above this level in the heliostar. So when you've got, you know, this top part, it just goes round and it's just outside of this off band area. So what I do in Photoshop is I cut it off here and then join the two together so that none of this off band area is in the mosaic to get mine. So that's just showing what I've been doing with the heliostar anyway, because I know that a lot of people are having problems with that sweet spot not being in the middle. I think that I'm very, very lucky that it is just in the middle, but it's just slightly off center, but not off center enough to make, you know, a difference. You know, I can put the full disc over to one side, even with the grasshopper, when I get like the full disc, if I put it sort of like up and to the left, it's all within the sweet spot. If I put the disc in more in the middle, then this bottom area becomes, you know, out of band. So I'm using everything that's sort of like up here. So that's a little bit of a trick. Some people think that they have to put the sun right in the middle and take a picture, but you don't. You can move it wherever your sweet spot is and then just trim it. So have
you tried a Barlow and just?
I did, but it didn't really help any matters whatsoever. It just, sorry, it just, I would have had to do more panes in a mosaic, and I just don't want to do that. I want it to be quick and easy, and that's what I bought it for. So
Yeah, sure.
I'm very happy doing, you know, like 2 panes, because the image is so flat. When I did 2 panes with the PST, the banding was so bad that I used to spend ages, you know, like in the join area, trying to balance it out, and it always looked messy. And it was just driving me spare, because I've got more to do in life than to sit fiddling around with that.
Alexandra, would you mind just sharing your screen again, please?
Okay.
Just I have one suggestion and a question for you. If you don't mind.
Yeah.
So if you can go to Photoshop and open up your image again, please. One lesson I learned some time ago was if you go to your shadow highlights again.
Obviously, mine's a very, very old version of Photoshop, because it's
So down at the bottom, I would suggest your black clip and white clip, set them to 0.
right, okay.
And save that as, because what it is doing, it's clipping your histogram both ends. So every time, so it just allows you to retain full control without it artificially clipping it for you. And then at the bottom left, you have save as defaults. So if you have a setting that works for you, you can just save that and then it'll retain it. But it has a habit of defaulting to 0.01%.
Right, I didn't know that.
So that's
That's
that.
really good to know.
And then the next one is, I'm just wondering if you go to up to, if you can close that. If you go to filter, I'm just wondering, do you have camera raw?
It's just, you're all in the way, so I can't actually go back in the histories.
Filter camera raw. I use that for every photo of everything.
Yeah.
That's where I do all my
Where is
pictures.
camera raw?
So if
It's
you go
under
to
filter.
filter,
No, she doesn't have it.
you don't. Okay.
No.
I would find the
I'm
camera
using
raw
CS6.
the camera raw sharpening more effective than the
It is.
sharpening that's normally in the,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
menu.
because I've only got like the smart sharpen.
Smart sharpen is definitely better than unsharpened. But yeah.
And Sharp Mask. I've used Sharp Smarten before, but I prefer to use the ImPPG because it's just so quick and simple.
Yeah.
But yes, I can't afford, you know,
Must be a
to
real ancient
spend
version.
oodles a month on Photoshop. So I've still got CS5, which I paid for a long, long time ago, and it does everything that I want it to do. So
Exactly.
Perfect.
Very good. And I was wondering, Alexander, first of all, fantastic images. I love how the level of is quite a fair. You must be somewhere in the 0.5 to 0.6 angstrom full width half maximum on the Heliostar. Visually, what is it like to look at? Is it as good as what the image shows? Is that
If anything, I would say it's probably better.
okay?
Visually. When I had the PST, it was quite dark, even though I bought, you know, like a new blocking filter because the other one had gone quite dark. It was still dark when I put the double stack on. And a lot of people, when they came, you know, past would go, what am I looking at? And it's like, what do you see? And it's like, oh, I can just see red. Can you see anything on the surface? Oh, I could see some dark marks, and that was about it. Whereas this, you know, it really visually popped. Everybody who's passed by, who's had a look through, they've gone, oh wow, you know, like startled. Oh, is that the whole sun? Oh my goodness, look at the little prominences on the edge and everything. So I can automatically tell from, you know, people who pass by and have a look that it must be, you know, so much better than what the PST double stack was. Even though when people, you know, had their eye in and actually sat there for a long time and stared, you know, and got their eye used to the dimness, then they would start to see, you know, features. But this, people can see immediately rather than having to let their like eye adjust.
Mm.
But
Michael, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah.
Hello, Stephen.
Yeah, I was gonna add, hi, everybody. Michael, I was gonna add in that the Heliostar that I have is just like Alexander's, and the surface is, the visual view is exceptionally good. In fact, the best one I've ever had was one of the original Coronado double stack 90s for visual viewing, but the Heliostar exceeds it significantly as far as seeing the surface. It's very bright, contrasty between the filaments and the brighter areas. And I've had extremely, I must have an extremely good one like Alexandra, and I know that there's a guy on there now that's got an extremely bad one. So I'm really sorry to see that, because Kevin Lagore, who's a good personal friend of mine, is kind of in charge of this project, and they really went out of their way to get quality assurance to be handled properly. But my Heliostar is by far the best visual scope that I've ever used, and that's the 76 millimeter. So I'm expecting a 100 millimeter also,
Yeah.
and we'll see how that goes. The only downside to the Heliostar, in my opinion, is the focuser is really cheap. On the 76 millimeter, it could be a lot better, but the 100 supposedly has a feather touch focuser.
And one of the things that, like, because I seriously considered buying one, and I ended up when I noticed that the buying of yours will not work, from what I understand with it, even with a 1.6x or 2x Barlow.
That's
and
correct.
For me, the difference from one eye to two eyes is night and day. It is just so much more comfortable. There's so much more to see.
Yeah, they won't work.
I
The
would
blocky
never
filter on it is the blocky filter nose on it. You know, the Coronado.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lunt blocky filter has a very long nose where you can have a lot of play, but the Heliostar is a standard 2-inch diagonal, so there's not any movement there.
Yeah,
and that's definitely a drawback if you like binoviewers.
And I have watched a couple of videos. One of a guy, I think it was in France, where he actually got a machine shop to already, they're already starting modifications, modifying the back end of the Heliostar. But I didn't really want to go into that. It's a little bit delicate, and no, so that's why I just got the second.
Well, it's also very light. You know, the scope weighs almost nothing, and it's very light and easy to carry around. And it definitely gives a 0.4 angstrom result with a single let on, and I really like it. But I really hope that the damage done to the one on Solarchat was from dropping it over a 6-foot fence.
Yeah, I would suspect that is the root cause.
Not going to help.
Well, they didn't just drop it unless the guy was 8 feet tall. You know, they had to throw it up over the fence and then let it drop.
That was just incredible. How could anyone do that?
You should see how they deliver our packages down here. You would not believe it. They leave our Home Chef, which is a food service that sends meals once a week that you cook yourself, you know, and they leave it out in the street, and it's 95 degrees, and the animals get into it all the time. You know, we live in the middle of a wildlife refuge, and they just leave this box out in the street, which is a quarter mile from my front door, and then don't even tell you when it's there.
Right.
But yeah, I'm hoping that's the first one I've seen that was a bad review of it. But on all that processing, you know, I was watching what you guys were saying, and I've never done either one of those things you guys are doing. I have a totally different method of processing.
We all do.
Yeah, well, you know, 10 years ago I was the man, and me and Pedro were the man. But now there's so many imagers that have far exceeded my abilities. I'm really happy to see that. That makes me smile. And I would say if you want more contrast, go with the SHG 700 and forget about your telescope.
I also use different methods, so you're not alone.
Yeah, I know it's
totally
great
different
to me.
methods.
I'd like to take a little bit of responsibility in seeing everybody. I love it when somebody comes up with something new and just blows me away. And that's great. And I'm sorry I missed last month's meeting. We had some personal issues that came up in the last week or two that have been very bad. But did you already go over the fundraiser, Alexander?
I have done, yes.
Okay.
I think 31 donations was pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, nobody owes me anything, and I don't expect you to pay to be on the forum. But it's nothing to do, I don't think, with any of our core members that are on these chats or anything. It's more the environment in the country right now is very, very, very bad. but you know, we don't need to get into all that. Things are not good in the United States right now.
No.
So, but anyway, things are good on Solarchat, and I have. We are currently building a storage building on the side of our home here, and all my telescopes have been packed away for safety reasons, and I haven't gotten to use a telescope in several weeks. So I'm really looking forward to being able to set them back up. And we're going to put an observatory on top of the building, at least unless my wife gets mad at me between now and then. She said I could put an observatory on top of the building. So
That
hopefully
sounds
we'll
really
have
exciting.
Stephen,
I do have the, yes, sir.
have you seen the article on the Kosovo Observatory in Sky and Telescope? Last issue.
No, I have not. I have not.
It's very interesting.
I would love to see it.
So you should see it. It's the
was
last
gonna-
issue, I think. It's June.
Okay.
The June issue, I think.
Did anybody else see my article in BBC Sky at Night this month?
No.
Oh my God. Okay. I thought that was super legit that I was in it. I did want to mention something. Tunisia was a trip Pedro and I took together in 2014 when we were sponsoring the group in Tunis. And I think Pedro would agree, you will not find more hospitable people or more friendly people. And we are seriously considering a trip there for the 2027 eclipse, which is going to go across the center of the country. There's a city called Sfax, S-F-A-X, that's on the east coast of Tunisia, that borders on the Mediterranean. And I just wanted to throw that out there. You know, for you guys in the UK, it wouldn't be too much of a trip at all. For me, it's a pretty big trip. For you Australians, forget about it. But I just wanted to throw that out there because, you know, we're not getting any younger.
You can see it in Spain also, in Spain, southern Spain. So
okay.
It's and the 2026, it's not very favorable, and 27 also. But anyway, still
well,
the ones
was my
we're
translator.
going to have. Yeah,
and I'm hoping I can, if it does amount to something, I've already spoken to Dr. Kamoun, who runs the group in Tunis. Then I'm hoping we can get a little bit of participation, you know, and see what happens.
I can join you.
Oh, you'll have to join me, Pedro, because who else is going to translate for me? I mean, Pedro looks like a little conquistador next to me because I look like a Sasquatch, like a gorilla, and he's a normal size person.
I'm getting old now. I'm almost 70, so
yeah. Well, so am I. That's what I just said. We're not getting any younger. There's not going to be a whole lot more chances. But I'm trying to think about, you know, things I'm grateful for at this age, and you know, you guys are one of them. So I'm just throwing that out there. So maybe some of us can work it out. Anybody having problems with the forum or anything?
Stephen said about the SHG being fairly flat. This is one I took this afternoon. Negative.
There is no better device out there for
mine is on its way, so I'm going to get it in the next week or something. So
good.
Looking forward to use it.
And you know, Min is a cheapskate, and he sponsored the forum. I couldn't believe it, but he's one of those guys who'll do anything to save $1. But he did sponsor our forum for 6 months, so I appreciate it. And so there it is. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, and that's straight out of the SHG, right? That's straight out of JSOLEX.
It is, yeah.
No processing whatsoever, other than the dark band. That's obvious there. There's no better way out there to get a full disk image of the sun.
That there, I'm not sure what it is. Whether it's bit of dust on the slit or something like that, I don't know.
Your mount probably got jiggled.
It's on all of them.
It is.
That I did this afternoon. Yeah.
You know that JSOLEX has now a new feature that takes care of this. Serrated. Yes, and that it works. So
yeah, that is the best software I've ever used.
Well, that's what.
And it's funny to me because people still insist on taking 30 or 40 of them and stacking them together, and I have no idea why. Because like when I was in Australia, you didn't have to stack your photos. You just took one photo. If you had a good CCD camera, which I did, there was no point in stacking anything because there wasn't any noise. And the SHG 700, if you've got it set up correctly and don't have the jaggy edges, you're just wasting your time, man. Stacking 100 of them. Just
You've got to have good
the one,
seeing, though.
yeah, well, that could be a case too. But the
Well,
one that
don't
comes
get
out down here is
decent seeing
perfect
here
already.
very often.
So it's funny to me to read all the different ways people are, making it more difficult than it has to be.
Stuart,
I like talking, sir.
did
Yes.
Stuart want to show the PixInsight bit from the beginning, or are you still on the iPad?
I'm still on the iPad.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I can show you the same an image
Yes.
taken today with Solex. It's not the same thing, but let me share this if I can find it where it is. Share.
Green button.
Yeah. Share. So this was taken with the Solex today, and it's only one image.
Yeah.
But anyway, it doesn't have the ring. It's more or less not very serrated. But I'm using a slow speed to take the disc across, so it's not perfect. So with the SHE, it's going to be much better for sure. But it helps to combine images. This is only one image. If you combine it 5 or 10, it gets much better. But this is the Solex. It's not very good. If you compare it to the SHE, it's much better for sure.
Well, you build the Solex yourself, and it's a lot of variability.
Yeah, I bought it secondhand, and I put everything together. But it's working okay. But it's not. Now you have different 3D printers that you can use, much better than the original one. But since I'm getting the SHE, I'm not going to bother. So
there's a woman in the UK.
The problem here is the mount that you use. So I'm
It has to
using
be a
a
good mount.
very high-end mount, the Takahashi EM400, and it doesn't work very well because it has only 2 speeds. So I'm going to use a Lowe's Mandy with the SHE, and then I can work with lots of different speeds. So, but it's very interesting. So you can do only one image and you have everything.
Yeah,
that's perfect.
There's a woman in the UK. I don't know her, but she's using something called the Sun Scan.
Oh, Nick.
Right.
Nick.
Yes,
Okay.
she's going to tell us all about it in the July.
Yeah, that looks pretty interesting too. But that's a build-it-yourself kit, though, right?
Yeah, the sun scan, you have to wait for the sun to drift across. No mount there. So it's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, the SHG 700 works a lot better on my less expensive Skywatcher Wave 150 mount than it does on my Astrophysics AP 1200 for the same reason, because of the speed issues.
Right.
But that thing is remarkable.
I upgraded my scope for the Solex and in the last couple of days. But what I am finding is that getting the optimal exposure right is so critical, like the frames per second.
Absolutely.
Now it specifies an exposure time. I think that's more of a maximum exposure time. You can have a shorter one than that, but having the right frame rate to match the speed is essential.
Yeah, that is the entire thing.
Maybe if
a clean slit, the slit being free of debris, and your scan speed is the whole thing.
Yeah, I'll just share a couple from the last couple of days. So that's a calcium H. Sorry, lad, just open up a few. That's a H alpha. Now I could do a bit more processing, but it's when I've been trying this on a 220mm focal length, I was just getting nowhere, to be honest with you.
You get a round sand, or when you
yeah, so I have only so many settings, speed settings. I've used I have this the 400mm focal length on a Paramount ME, and in that I have 1, 2, 4x, 8x, and so on. Ideally, it would be nice to have a custom setting, a 5x or 6x or speed, slew speed. So I have to the height of the box in the region of interest will determine the amount of data that comes down per frame. So bear with me now. Yeah, I've lost you from my screen here.
Normally I have to use about 20 images per second because I have only a few speeds. So and I get a round sand. And this is important also. If you don't get it round, it will be worse.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
use
so you-
100 frames a second on mine.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's the one, but I have to use a filter, so that's the problem there.
if I go into
If
one
I
of
don't,
the,
I will damage the sleep. So
I'll just share the H alpha video here, for example. I just keep it as narrow as possible, and then here I'm at 155 frames per second. And try, but it's really sensitive to focus.
Yeah.
You know, within fractions of a tenth of a millimeter back and forth to try and get the edges right, and then barely tweaking the focus of the unit itself. At the camera side to try and get it. It's very sensitive to focus.
right, get the SHG. It's much better.
Yeah,
And it's not very
It
expensive.
is.
It's not
It
expensive.
really is.
And the only thing I suppose that's a sodium, and not a whole lot on that. This is a hydrogen beta. I would say two things I would say the downsides of them. I would say yes, they're excellent value for money. I'm not sure there's some anomaly on the right hand side here as well. It is full disk and it is imaging only. Okay, so
Yeah.
And when you look at the number of wavelengths that one will be imaging with spectroheliograph, like the H alpha is the obvious one, because just how narrow the bandwidth is. And then the likes of calcium. But then after that, like I'm not going to do 40 or 50 wavelength, you know, processing.
Yeah.
Whereas I think there's it depends what one, you know, like I like the visual as well. So you know, it's just trying to get the right balance. I don't want to be doing imaging all the time.
These were the first images I took as soon as I set it up, and I was taking these 5 minutes after I turned it on.
Yeah.
And you know, it's an incredible device for sure.
Mhm.
Did anybody have anything for me, because my battery is about to die and I am outside? I wanted to say thanks to everybody for making the forum so good. And thank you, especially Alexander, for working so hard to keep things going while I've been absent. We do have enough to keep the forum going another year, so that's all good. But you know, bounce around the idea of a Solarchat meetup in Tunis. You'll never be treated better by a host. So that's about it. Is everybody, the forum running okay for everyone? Any problems?
Yeah.
Running good.
All good.
Okay, because you know our consultant died about 6 months ago, so the next time it gets messed up, then that's just going to be the end of it. Unless we can find somebody else to work on it. So, I am going to leave you guys. Please enjoy the meeting, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay.
Take care, Stephen.
Bye.
Right, so take care. Okay.
Can't remember who's sharing now.
Great.
If you want, I can share an image and just show you example of what little bit I do on camera
yeah.
roll, if you want.
Okay. Oh yes.
So just bear with me and I'll just dig out an image. There's not much that can be done on the processing side with the likes of the Solex images. They're just a very different type of image. They don't have the high resolution detail that would otherwise occur. So bear with me a second.
You are having fantastic weather in the UK now. I heard.
Yeah.
It is quite extraordinary.
Always sunshine.
The
That's
UK
very
average
unusual.
is- It's very unusual. Yeah, long may continue. And the forecast is very good. And I know, Pedro, you guys in Portugal, and in fact, everyone in the Iberian Peninsula, it's just constant rain. It is the Gulf Stream has just
exactly.
been moved south. It's extraordinary.
The last month was terrible, and now it's completely clear now. But it has been very, very bad, raining all the time.
With a lot of serious flooding, and I think
Yes.
believe it was
Yeah,
fatalities
also.
down in the likes of Malaga.
Right.
So that's just one image, but maybe if I open it up in Photoshop. I don't really do anything outside of camera raw. And if anyone has any suggestions, please shout. But in terms of sharpening it, I will go into the likes of the sharpening tool here. And then I would also use the likes of maybe a texture. Now, you could possibly use a clarity as well, but if you push it too far, it kind of just maybe becomes a little bit too. If I go in at 100%, it might be a bit easier to see. That's it, with and without the sharpening, and you could probably even do with a second round of sharpening, to be honest. And then the likes of the for the prominences, the likes of the shadows, and the if I go down here, the darks as well, and just a matter then of tweaking how far to one wants. But you know, if you end up with no color around here, I find it would just clip the prominences too much, to be honest. And you could even possibly take another round of sharpening. Then it just depends on personal taste. But I would find this sharpening too. Now you can see there it's gone too far. It's too noisy. So it just depends on what's in the image. Now, when I'm stacking, I would typically stack 10%. Now I notice, Alexandra, I think you use 5% if I was to read that folder right. And then how many frames per second are you? How many frames would you record for a video?
1,000 frames, and it takes it at 55 frames per second.
Okay, so I would take 1,000 as well, and then and I've often wondered what is the optimum number. It's hard to know really. So, but
I think it depends on your camera.
Yeah, but like I'm very interested more on the what can be done in the likes of PixInsight. You know, I'm not as doing as much imaging as you guys, but it's interesting just with the camera raw, just the amount of functionality in there. I'm sure if I was to keep playing with that and tweak the contrast and exposures, you know, it mightn't be the best image to use if this was with only a 500mm focal length with a focal reducer. So it's not a high resolution. Stop sharing.
Can I just add something?
Sure.
I think one of the problems we have is that most of us are using CMOS cameras now, and I'm still using the CCD cameras, and they are very slow, but the dynamic range is much better. So if you use this shadows and highlights, you won't get any artifacts. And with the CMOS cameras, it's ringing all over the place, and it's not easy. But anyway, so CCD cameras are there now. In a few years, we're not going to find them anymore, but we have to work with the CMOS cameras. But it's very different. I still use a CCD camera every day, so it's much better, in my opinion. So I don't know.
But is that because of the well depth, but it's also that it's 16-bit?
Yes. No, I always use 16-bit images, but the dynamic range is very bad. If you compare a CMOS camera to a CCD, it's half or even less of the dynamic range. So.
Like this, Pedro?
Yes, exactly the one I have, a grasshopper, old one.
This is old one as well.
Still working. I have two, still working.
And Alexandra, do you record in 8-bit or 16-bit?
I usually record in 16-bit if I can.
Because I would have thought that would help as well. Now I know there was some debate, was it on a previous session as to whether 16 was worthwhile or not?
Oh, I tried that, but I only record 8-bit videos. So, and then the TIFF file will be 16-bit. So, but anyway, it doesn't have if you talk to our French colleague, what is his name? So
Christian.
exactly. Getting old. But he always records 8-bit videos, not 16-bit videos. So it's more than enough, I think.
So I've switched to my laptop now, if that helps.
Please.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we have a quick look at the PixInsight?
So share screen.
I have to open my observatory. It's completely clean outside.
That PixInsight is a very different program. It just seems quite unintuitive compared to other software, but I guess it's just a matter of learning it.
But it's great. It's great. I don't use it for solar imaging or processing, but it's fantastic. PixInsight. You have to learn it. So.
Mm.
Yeah.
And, but is that because of the well depth, but it's also that it's 16-bit?
Yeah. No, I use 16-bit. 16-bit videos. No, not 16-bit videos. So it's more than enough, I think.
Mm. And what is the support like, training videos, the community like? Are you left on your own with a manual that you're...
No, you have lots of things on YouTube, so you can always check.
So I
Sorry, Stu.
mentioned multi-scale linear transform. So you select this from the process list. And then I always go to this one, scale 4. And you just do that fairly lightly, 0.1, which is next to nothing, but it does make a difference. So how do I to get rid of that, to expand that, let's move that out of the way a little bit. Let's focus in on that spot. So if I just click on that, it just sharpens it up that little bit. Now you can play around with that. Again, it depends on the conditions at the time when you take the image and so on, as to how aggressive you should be. I find 8 is a little too aggressive, and 2, I think these are pixel scales. That's a little bit light. Sometimes I do use a combination, but most often I use scale of 4 and 0.1. So I just sharpen it up a little bit with that, get rid of that. And then we're back to Solar Toolbox. I'll just put this on full screen there. Okay. So again, ensure you've got surface and prominences selected. You can adjust the parameters around the rim to define where the limb starts by adjusting these black points, white points, and this one here on the rim. I find I very rarely have to adjust that. Just leave it as it is. On prominence boost, as I say, I use around about 0.4 to 0.5. Again, it just depends on the gamma when you captured the image. I tend to drop gamma back a little bit because I could record this at a higher gamma setting to make it more contrasty, but I feel that I want to capture as much the range of grayscale as much as possible. So I just pull gamma back a little bit, because you can always bring it back with boosting in processing. So around about 0.4 on that one, and then contrast enhancement, always check local contrast, and as I say, around about 3.5, and then click that, and it takes a few seconds. And there we go. So without and with, so you can see the tremendous difference that it makes. And again, it's just a case of playing around with those parameters in order to get something that you like. Now that might look a little bit bright, but I'm happy that I've got everything I need out of that image. I can then just go into histogram transform. There it is. And then just play around with these settings. Sorry, I put on that one. Just play around with these settings until I'm happy with it.
And Stuart, with the likes of the disk, there's various schools of thought as to where the peak of a histogram should be. Is it in the center, or is it 2/3 up? What would be, or do you just judge it by eye and just say, I like the look of that?
I just judge by eye. Yeah.
If you press
if
you press the V, this V on the bottom, you'll have the histogram. To the left. Yes.
Yeah, that's
there.
That's the one.
So you have the histogram now.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I can use that, but I tend to just look at the image and see what I like.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do at the end of the day, isn't it? We see people's images and we don't see the histograms, we just see the image.
Yeah.
You know, if you like it.
And
But that seems to do a pretty good job. Sorry,
what is your H alpha setup here? What aperture and filters are you using?
So this is my triple stacked Lunt 60. So it's got two front ettalons and the pressure tuner. And this is a 9-paint mosaic. I know Alexandra was saying, you know, she doesn't like doing big mosaics, and I can quite understand that because they can be a pain, but you have to be absolutely spot on getting an even pane, so that when you stitch them all together, you don't get a patchwork quilt with slightly different brightnesses across each pane. So that took quite a bit of getting used to. But basically, I've set up a system and I've put some tape on across the ettalons on the front, so nothing moves. And it's pretty much bob on every time. I just need to change the pressure tuned etalon for each session, just to account for atmospheric changes, you know.
And do you use any flat fields, Stu?
No flats at all.
And which camera? What camera is this?
So that's a Basler. That's the ACA 2440. 3.45 micron pixels. I think it's a 5
CMOS.
Oh yeah.
It's great. It's very nice.
But what's incredible is the small size of the pixels on cameras now in comparison to the CCD ones. Like when I was just years ago when I was doing some deep sky stuff on the spectroscopy, you could get ones that were 20 micron, or you know, a small pixel was 9 micron. Now with the likes of the ASI 178, you have 2.2 micron, and they're still sensitive. It's quite remarkable, really.
Yeah.
But you're gaining so much more in resolution.
I'm only using CMOS camera to image the deep sky now, but for solar, it's much better a CCD camera. Anyway, but they are slow.
Well, what kind of frame rate when you're taking a video? Then how many frames per second are you getting?
About 26.
Well, that's okay. Okay. And what CCD camera are you using?
This grasshoppers, the
grasshopper one. Sorry.
Ones.
Yes. Yeah.
I have the two grasshoppers, and I use the slide. I don't. The name it's very big and difficult, but they are very similar, and both have CCDs. And I also use other CMOS cameras as well. The set 174 and 178, and also the Apollo Max, the Player One. I have a few, and they're okay, but not CCDs are much better for this. It's my feeling. And now I'm learning to use Nina. It's a mess to image the sky and the deep sky, and it works very well. But, anyway, I will try today with a full moon to see if it works. But
you've been busy with the Sea Star, Pedro.
Yeah. But I've been to a Bortle 1-2 sky, and it's totally different. If you are in a very good sky, the Sea Star is wonderful, and you can. It's totally different. You have great images, and now we are going to have a new Sea Star 70, I think. But anyway, I won't buy it for sure. I have too many telescopes already.
Need one more.
I think you gave us a bit of an exhibit one of the sessions. I think there was a variety of rooms with telescopes, if I recall correctly.
Exactly. Just here in my room, I have about 50.
Yes, actually.
About 50. Anyway.
Yeah, Pedro's museum.
Right.
Were you affected by the power cuts the other week?
Yes, we had 10 hours, 10 hours without electricity, and it's in Spain it was much worse, but 10 hours, and it was a mess. Anyway, without power you cannot do anything. Read a book. That's what I did.
Oh, so you couldn't make use of the Bortle 1 skies then?
Exactly. But it came around 8 So,
Oh.
so at night we had already, but the Bortle one, it's in the south of Portugal, and it's fantastic. It's a dark sky protected area, and it's fantastic. It's almost like in Chile. So we still have fantastic skies here. Anyway,
And what was interesting was just immediately that evening, the fake images that were on
right, exactly.
social media, as if the whole Iberian Peninsula had zero power. You know, it was amazing. Whereas it wasn't quite as extreme as that. I moved a telescope to a remote observatory recently in the northwest of Spain, and so no sooner was it there, and then, you know, between power outages and all sorts of heavy rain, yeah, it's been.
Oh, what's it?
Oh,
Your fault, Michael.
Well, no, it did actually rain before I went there, so I did not actually shift the entire weather front down south with me. I wish I had that power, I can assure you.
But usually we have fantastic skies here, always sunny, but not now. I don't know. The weather is changing. Climate change.
It's been for several months now. I mean, it's not
2 or
just
3 months already.
Yeah.
But it's getting better now. Today it's totally clear. So anyway, it's going to rain on Tuesday, and then it will be clear again.
And I noticed, Alexandra and Stu, that we're getting, for Ireland anyway, we're getting a little bit of rain, I think, this evening and tomorrow, and then it's given a dry for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah,
that's perfect.
Yeah, even Scotland is dry.
Yeah.
Even Scotland, yeah.
Well, and we're coming into not far off the Noctilucent cloud now, so you'll probably be the first to see it, Brendan.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
How far up in Scotland are you, roughly?
I'm just outside Glasgow.
Okay.
Not really far enough. But we've had some good shows this year.
Yeah. And quite a few I'm getting a numerous Aurora pings on my phone there over the last couple of weeks. I'm sure if you've got to see them.
There was Aurora 2 nights ago. Even in the twilight sky.
Really?
Because it's like 11 o'clock before it's dark here now.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're past the hour now. So I'll draw this meeting to a close. It's been lovely to see everyone, and it's lovely to have a chat, and it's great to see all the different ways of how we can process our solar images. So I just want to say thank you for everyone coming, and we'll see you next time. Okay.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mind yourself, Alexandra.
Cheers.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.